just laid out.
Hancock again. We're gonna see if we can get a deer or two on the recorder this evening. Hopefully I can have some of the luck that I had last week when I was down here. There's a pea patch out there. I drove around through here a little while ago and I seen one spike over there. So it's about 5:30 of the evening. So we'll see what we can do here.
see about 15 deer out there running around right now. And I think the two babies sitting up there. There's a buck right there.
I see the big boy out there. It's an 8-pointer, but he is a nice one. Buck right there, and the big one is down over the hill from that. I think he just raised his horns there. And everything a deer like this, that's almost a solid black deer. There must be about 20 deer out there in the peat patch right now. If there's one, I bet there's 20. And I think every one of them came by me except the big one now I really wanted a picture of. Well, if I could only pick up half of what I see out there. I can see him raise his rack up. We're looking at him right now. The big buck is pushing around the little one. I was seeing it through the spotter scope.
To the United States for leadership here, many countries, and I think the best thing to do now is to put these matters on hold. We did this yesterday. As you've seen, the Europeans, Western Europeans have followed suit. We don't want to hurt people anywhere in terms of starvation, things of that nature. But that's not the question right now. So it's premature for me to say what agreements will go forward and what won't. I will always have in mind what is in the national interest of the United States, however.
Mr. President, in light of your statement of yesterday, late yesterday afternoon, and in light of the fact that you're now denouncing the new regime in Moscow as illegitimate and unconstitutional, might you now or soon be considering granting to Lithuania and the other Baltic republics, which are, after all, elected governments, the full recognition they have long demanded?
Our position on the Baltic states has not changed, if there's ever a change in the position, we'll let you know. As you all know, we have not ever recognized the forcible incorporation of the Baltic states into the Soviet Union. And that's where that matter is right now. But we are not giving up on the restoration of constitutional government in the Soviet Union itself. And so we'll leave that matter right there.
Well, Mike, if that fails, sir,
I'm not going to go into any hypothesis. I don't want to give hope to the coup plotters by suggesting that it is going to fail. Let's see, here we are over here.
Are you saying that if the coup succeeds and the Soviet government, this new Soviet government, is in power a long time, that the U.S. still would not recognize the Soviet Union?
You must have missed what I said to Brett. I'm not going to go into anything that hypothetical. There's no point in trying to spell out way in advance of events what we might or might not do. And the main thing I want to do is see the restoration of constitutional government. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to take hypothetical questions or respond to questions with of a hypothetical nature. I simply can't do that.
You're very definite in the short term about not recognizing them.
I'm very definite in what I said in this statement, yes.
Have you heard from Mr. Yeltsin about the whereabouts or the well-being of Mr. Gorbachev, or from anyone else for that matter?
Mr. Yeltsin told me that he tried to send emissaries to see Mr. Gorbachev, that those emissaries were unsuccessful because Mr. Gorbachev is being prevented from seeing people. As I say, I've tried to call him yesterday. I think Prime Minister Major tried the same thing. I tried again today. Mr. Gorbachev is the duly constituted leader of the Soviet Union, and we will continue to try. The other thing that Yeltsin told me is that, and I think he's said this publicly, that he feels that if this medical answer has any validity to it, that the World Health Organization should be permitted to see and examine Mr. Gorbachev. I can tell you that Yeltsin doesn't believe that, and I must tell you I don't believe it. But that is one of the canards being thrown out. It's really old-fashioned, but nevertheless, we will continue to try to stand with Mr. Gorbachev as Yeltsin is trying to do.
Mr. President,
are you going to have to increase our stores of ammunition now? Are you going to leave more troops in Europe than you would have taken out?
I'm not crossing any of those bridges now at all. I've mentioned that the matter is where it stands. We're not moving any forces. Secretary Cheney, General Powell can respond to that when I finish if anyone wants to go further, but there's no, I'm not trying to elevate any chance of military confrontation. Nobody wants that, and I hope that that's true of the coup plotters. It's certainly true of Eastern Europe, of Western Europe, and of the United States of America, and it's darn sure true of the people that elected Mr. Yeltsin, and it's true of the people that have supported constitutional reform in the Soviet Union, which are vast majorities. So I'll leave it right there. Yeah.
Mr. President,
The Soviet regime, be that concerned about American threats, considering it so far has been a bloodless coup, and considering our response to the Tiananmen Square massacre?
What was that again?
Should the new Soviet regime be that concerned with American threats, considering so far it's been a bloodless coup?
Who's threatening? Who's threatening?
You're not going to say, give them any diplomatic recognition at this point?
I don't view that as a threat. I view that as a factual statement that's not threatening at all. We are committed. Nobody should be surprised that we remain committed to democratic reform and to constitutional government there. And that means that Gorbachev, who was constitutionally installed, is in our view in power. You know, it's interesting that Yanayev is saying he looks forward to working with Gorbachev. It seems to me that gives a certain credibility what I'm just saying. But I raised the question, I hope not in a testy manner, about military confrontation, because I think we want to cool that. This isn't the time to threaten militarily or to move forces around just to show machoism. That's not what's called for here. What's called for is diplomacy. What's called for is commitment to principle, backing those people who are committed to reform, backing the people in the Soviet Union and in the republics. Right over here.
yeah, Mr. President, you said that there are other democratic forces in the Soviet Union that they may help. It seems that you wouldn't settle for anything but Gorbachev, but do you see other democratic forces emerging there that could play a very big role? Who are they? And also,
Well, there's plenty of people that are committed. Look at the mayor of Leningrad, for example. There are plenty of people who are committed to democracy and to reform there and in the republics. And I think one of the things that triggered this coup, the timing of the coup, was the fact that a Union treaty was about to be signed, which gave certain rights to these republics. So believe me, there's thousands and millions of people that are committed to democratic reform. But why should I go into that question that might imply that we are turning our backs on the duly constituted leader? We're not going to do that.
You know, the present group seems to be trying to appeal to the people because they feel that they are hungry and they want food. Do you think that the London summit could have done something more financially?
Well, what they're trying to do is to say, look, we got energy problems, we got food problems, we got health problems, and we, the unelected coup, are going to solve those problems. They can't do it without outside support. And Mr. Yeltsin knows that, Mr. Gorbachev knows that, and these people will understand that. But what they're doing is trying to cloak their illegal move in the usurping power by saying to the people, we're going to help you in these areas where you've been shortchanged. And that will not succeed. They're going to need to go forward with these reforms if the Soviet Union is going to fulfill its potential. So that is a clear, obvious tactic they're using, but I don't think that people are going to buy into it. Jessica.
Mr. President,
I'm going to take two more after this, and then we've got to run.
President, when you spoke with Yeltsin, did he give you any indication that he feared for his personal safety, or that the Gorbachev family, Mrs. Gorbachev, was in any way, was with her husband away, or...
Yeah, nothing on the Gorbachev matter. And here was a man who was standing Yeltsin standing courageously against military force. And I told him that we respect you. You've been duly elected here. We pray for you, and we hope that you're successful. And what he wants to see is the restoration of constitutional government. He wants to see the rights of the republics, and he wants to see President Gorbachev restored to power. And he didn't say he's afraid. He's a very courageous man. And he says he's convinced that the people will stand with him, and well, they should. Charles, and then one more. That's it.
President, for you or for Ambassador Strauss, when he gets there, with just whom will he be meeting?
I'll leave that up to his good judgment, Charles, because you know Moscow so well, and it's very hard to say with whom he will be meeting. But one thing I want him to do is establish his leadership in our embassy, to consult with a highly professional staff there, one of whom is Mr. Collins, who's the DCM, to whom I talked yesterday, get the lay of the land from the ground, so it's less reaching out to individual leaders, but I'll leave that to his good judgment and the judgment of the Secretary of State. Last one, Owen, and then we're going. I haven't seen you in a long time over here.
I'm trying to establish, if I could follow up, I'm trying to establish whether it's cricket for him to meet with Mr. Yanayev, for example.
Well, I know we have no plans on that, and what we don't want to do is do anything that legitimizes this current regime, or legitimizes what is clearly an illegal coup. And at this juncture, there are no plans for that. But again, this is a fast-moving situation, and we'll have to wait and see what his judgment is when he gets there and what he and the Secretary decide. Owen, and this is the last one.
Gorbachev over the past month. Did either of you in your conversations talk about the possibility of something like this happening, or the possibility of even civil war in the Soviet Union?
Nope. What was talked about on his part was the irreversibility of this change. The fact that constitutional government is there, elections are over the horizon and have taken place in the republics, some of the republics, and his conviction that the people are committed to reform and certainly to openness, glasnost as well. And I've seen nothing in the last day or two that would compel him or me to alter that. Now, that isn't to say that there's a formidable obstacle right now in the way, and that is 8 people that have usurped unto themselves all the power and are trying to take over by force, although Yanayev has said he looks forward to working with Mr. Gorbachev in the future. So there wasn't a discussion of that. As you know, I think I have referred to, I know I have in our own meetings, concerns that we conduct ourselves in such a way to minimize the chance of military takeovers, and that military takeover has taken place. But I believe that the policy that we've had into effect of supporting Gorbachev, as Yeltsin is now has been doing over the last few months, is the correct policy. I think it is the best hope for democracy, was the best hope for democracy and reform, and remains the best hope for democracy and reform. You get hit from the left saying if you'd written out a better check, this wouldn't have happened, and I don't believe that for one single minute. And you get hit on the other side by people that are suggesting that if we hadn't been supportive of the duly constituted president of the Soviet Union, that things would have gone more swimmingly for democracy. I reject that. I don't believe there's any fact in that, and if there were, why was Boris Yeltsin, who was elected overwhelmingly, as supportive as he was and continues to be of Mr. Gorbachev? So there it is, and as I say, we will be departing. I'm going to continue this vacation. I'm going to encourage our people to, but I don't want to be under any false color. It's going to be different now than it's been. Maybe a little more like last year. What is it about August? And but I will closely monitor this. We have extremely good communications up there, not only with our own key leaders, the Secretary of State, ambassadors, Secretary of Defense, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, our Chief of Staff, our National Security Team, the Vice President. Communications are excellent. But I don't want to again, mislead people. I'm going to be spending a little more time maybe quite a bit more time in various formal ways that you will see unveiled in staying on top of this situation. But I don't want to panic. I don't want to send a signal, but by sitting around the Oval Office here, looking busy, that the American people should expect an instant satisfactory answer to this problem. I don't want to elevate hopes by succumbing to the whims of a few political critics that suggest that the matter can be better done in another way. It happened the same thing last year, and I did it the way I thought was best, and I hope I will have the full support of the American people as we follow this very, very closely. But I want to redefine it because I said that this vacation was going to be all rest and no work, and now it's going to be changed somewhat, even though I have been getting briefed. We have tremendous press coverage up there, get our message out. We have excellent communications and contacts, and rather than elevate the hopes by churning around in here, I'm going to finish what I started out to do. And I will receive various visitors, and you'll be fascinated, I am sure, by who they are, and it'll show you my commitment to staying right on top of this situation, because people are looking to the United States for the leadership in this disproportionately. And I might add this point. Neither the ambassador here, or the Secretary of State, or the Secretary of Defense, or the Vice President, or the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, or my White House advisors want to see this turn into an East-West confrontation. And we're going to get pushed. If I answered some of these hypothetical questions, I could inadvertently move things into an East-West confrontation. And that's not what this is about. Many changes, constructive changes, have taken place in the world as a result of Mr. Gorbachev's leadership, as a result of Mr. Yeltsin's election. Adherence to democracy, for example, in the latter case. And clearly all you have to do is look at Eastern Europe, you have to look at a united Germany, you have to look at cooperation in various areas around the world to know what I'm talking about. So what we don't want to do is inadvertently set back any of those changes that are very, very important to the United States and to the rest of the world, particularly to Eastern Europe. And so we will conduct ourselves less flamboyantly than some would have us do our business, but I think with a proper mixture of strength and conviction to these democratic principles. Thank you all very much.
Mr. President,
What about the letter? Mr. President?
Are you concerned about Yeltsin's safety personally, sir?
And so the president is not taking any further questions, although he did hold forth at some time. We're going to go to Moscow live as soon as we are able to do that. There has been some activity and threats of other activity. Let's go to Steve Hurst if we can bring him in. Steve?
Reed, there is a lot of information here, all of it unconfirmed at this point, but all of it, I insist, comes to the possibility.
I'm sorry, we have lost communication. It's raining in Moscow. It's a little bit past 6 o'clock in the evening, and our signal is not always reliable as we saw. Steve Hurst did relay some information, however, to CNN that he obtained from those who are holed up inside the Russian Federation building, saying, we kindly request this appeal on our behalf. And it goes on, it's sort of an appeal for help and a belief that perhaps that building might be coming under pressure. Let's go back to Steve Hurst, and he can complete the story much closer at hand. Steve, are you there?
I'm here. If you can hear me, Reed, essentially what they're saying is that they expect an attack by the Soviet occupation forces in Moscow.
All right, what Steve has told us is that those inside the Russian Federation building, the now headquarters of Boris Yeltsin, fear some sort of attack from the coup leaders within 2 hours, as Steve Hurst said. That is the situation in Moscow. We'll continue to monitor that most closely where it is early evening. It's not yet noon at the White House, but there's sort of a high noon atmosphere about it anyway. And CNN's Charles Bierbauer, our senior White House correspondent, as we saw, was on the Rose Garden lawn asking and receiving some of the questions. Charles, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Reed.
Reed, I don't know if the Bush administration also got those signals from Moscow, from Mr. Yeltsin and company about a concern about a threat or an attack against the Russian parliament building there. But certainly Mr. Bush gave strong support for Mr. Yeltsin, indicating that anything that would impair the legally elected president of the Russian Republic would not be welcomed here at the White House. He indicated that he had just this morning talked with Boris Yeltsin to give him that kind of support to encourage the Russian president indeed, and that the president here, Mr. Bush, has over the past 2 days tried twice to reach Mikhail Gorbachev, both times unsuccessfully, one as recently as about an hour before this news conference started. The president primarily was here to swear in Robert Strauss as the new U.S. ambassador to the Soviet Union. That done in a semi-private Oval Office ceremony, and then Ambassador Strauss with Mr. Bush here in the Rose Garden. Ambassador Strauss is headed directly for Moscow and will report back to the president in a matter of a few days. Reed?
Charles, let's see if we can't bring in Steve Hurst once again and see if our Moscow signal is any better. Are you there, Steve?
Reed, we're suffering from a rainstorm here, one that just passed. I think we have a loose connection. What I was trying to say is that the Soviet government at the highest levels is claiming and saying that it has information that Soviet troops will attack the building within 2 hours. All women and children have been ordered out. They also have appealed to all governments in the West to use all avenues to talk to the coup leaders to prevent this attack that they claim is forthcoming. They further claim that Mr. Gorbachev is now under arrest with 2 of his top aides, and that a decree has been issued for the arrest of Boris Yeltsin. We had reports earlier from our people inside that building that there was pandemonium as people were rushing to put on gas masks and trying to take up defensive positions. Once again, we don't know about the validity of these claims, but they are being made by the Russian government. They further say that 80 tanks are being moved toward the building from behind it in the region of the Belaruski Vokzal, which is about 2.5 miles from behind the building as you see it from this angle. So we're waiting to see. Very, very worried here that this might come to pass with the silence of the coup leaders all day. We're thinking more and more that they may be a problem. Reed?
Something during the President Bush news conference, we saw frequent footage of 2 trams that are sideways across a broad prospect, apparently blocking all traffic there, and a knot of people and small vehicles around them. Do you know where that is and what that means?
Reed, those trolley buses have been in place at both ends of this bridge since about this time yesterday, and some of these renegade tanks have taken up positions with them. Mr. Yeltsin has just recently talked to John Major, the British Prime Minister, and said through his aides who called our office that he was very pleased with those discussions. Earlier, Mr. Yeltsin was in a very feisty mood when he finally walked out of the building today and had this to say to the enormous crowd waiting for him and chanting his name.
Dear Muscovites, it is true that we have to take precautions because the junta which has come to power will not stop short of anything in order to retain their power. In democratic Moscow, the conservative forces will be stopped. Democracy will triumph. The junta will be stopped.
Boris Yeltsin was talking about stopping the junta, the junta. We'll have to wait and see whose forces are stronger, whether world public opinion weighs down heavily upon the leaders of this coup and keeps them from some sort of bloody attack on the Russian Federation building where Boris Yeltsin and his government are holed up and have been since the very start of this coup, or whether they will say world opinion be damned and go ahead with an attack that the leaders of the Russian government claim is imminent. Reed?
Steve, is there any way to know how many Muscovites and how many Soviet citizens may be hearing and seeing the things that you and I have been hearing and seeing as far as Mr. Yeltsin's remarks, Mr. Bush's remarks?
Well, Mr. Bush's remarks, of course, will be a long time filtering down to the Russian population, to Muscovites. But certainly there is an amazing jungle telegraph that works in this society. It used to work when scarce goods came into the stores, and very quickly it passed among workers where those goods were. It was amazing, in fact, and I think that the words of Mr. Yeltsin and the events of today are passing throughout Moscow very, very rapidly.
All right, Steve Hurst will be standing by where it is past 6 p.m. in Moscow, and where, as we have heard, that there has been the indication from those within the Russian Federation building that they may imminently come under attack. As Steve reports, there is no confirmation, no way at all to confirm that suspicion that they now hold. They've ordered women and children to get out of the building in order that they might better defend it. Let's go back to CNN senior White House correspondent Charles Bierbauer, if we may. Charles, you were just adverting to the conversation that Mr. Bush had just had with Mr. Yeltsin, during which, at least from the Bush recounting of it, there was no indication of such fears as we've been hearing directly from the scene, was there?
No, we did not get that, at least in Mr. Bush's account of that conversation with Boris Yeltsin. He said he had given Mr. Yeltsin strong encouragement that he, Mr. Yeltsin, Mr. Gorbachev were the duly elected leaders of the Soviet Union and the Russian Republic. And he said that Mr. Yeltsin voiced a considerable gratitude for the support that he is finding among the Russian people for his stand against the group that has now taken charge. Mr. Bush, for his part, used every adjective he could think of, it seemed, to denounce what he called the coup plotters, the usurpers, the illegitimate grabbers of power, and words of that ilk to refer to the 8 or more who now seem to be in control of things in the Kremlin. As far as sending Ambassador Strauss back there, when I asked the president if he would be meeting with any of those people with Mr. United, the president said he did not want to confer any legitimacy upon this group, again calling them the coup plotters. So it would seem that Mr. Strauss's mission is to get an on-hand view, see how the U.S. Embassy is set up, perhaps to meet with Boris Yeltsin. That would certainly be in the cards, and then to get back quickly to the president back up at Kennebunkport in Maine, where the president is headed this afternoon. He says he's going to try and continue his vacation, but it's not going to be quite the vacation as usual, reflecting on last year's situation in Iraq when that occurred in August. Mr. Bush said, "What is it about August that spoils vacations?" Reed?
All right, let's find out what there is about an August rain in the capital of Moscow and return to Steve Hurst.
Yes, I'm sorry, would you repeat that, Reed? We were talking to our people down below.
I'm sorry, Steve. We simply were returning it to you to tell us what's happening there.
Well, as you can see from our rooftop position here, there is a gaggle of people, and it looks like to me 3 armored personnel carriers or tanks clustered around 2 trolley buses, which have been parked since yesterday about this time at the end of the bridge leading over the Moscow River along Kutuzovsky Prospect. If you'd pan up a bit, Hugh, you can see 2 other buses parked across the far end of that bridge. And if you pan slowly to the left, you get a view of the Russian Federation building. Very unusual that the lights are on the front of that building, certainly in the middle of the day like this. The sun doesn't go down for a long time yet in Moscow. Apparently in anticipation of the attack that the leaders of the Russian government say is imminent within the next hour or 2. They further say if you can see that building still, from behind there, about 2.5 miles along, is the Belarusian train station. All trains from there leading west out of the Soviet Union into Poland. That there are 80 tanks en route from there. Further beyond that are a couple of airfields on the outskirts of Moscow where the leaders of the Russian government claim planes are landing from a peninsula in Azerbaijan carrying paratroopers that would take part in all of this. Hugh, if you would pan back down to the bridge. We cannot spin around and show you, but the streets leading up to this scene where the buses are across the bridge and the armored personnel carriers, these are the Renegade armored personnel carriers, by the way, that broke off from the Tamanskaya division, which rolled into Moscow yesterday morning. Back down the street away from this scene, Kutuzovsky Prospect leads out to the west of town and to the Minsk Highway, the highway leading out towards Belarus and on into Poland. There were earlier reports that there were tanks massed on the outside of town at the end of that road as well. The demonstrations that we've been seeing all day, Hugh, if you go back to the Russian building, the demonstrations that we've been seeing all day are occurring at the back side of that building. There's a very large parking lot there. where at least 150,000 people had massed at one time. We can't see it from here, but the overflow crowd to the right makes us believe that most of those people are still there, defying the call by the leaders of the Russian government, at least for women and children, to leave the region, so that those who would have to defend the building would feel safe in their work. But once again, I hasten to add that these claims are all being made by the Russian government, and we have no independent information at all that anything is going to happen. The Russian government, however, has its people out in the countryside, in the city, and is well connected throughout the sprawling republic, the largest of the 15 Soviet republics, and they ought well to know what is going on. We can only hope that perhaps a bit of panic and rumor mongering has sparked this seeming crisis at the Russian Federation building and might be leading to an overreaction. We certainly all hope, I'm sure, that there isn't going to be any conflict or confrontation. Reed?
Steve, let me just get a couple of things clear. First of all, the blockage of the bridge, that is done by the coup side, I gather, and can you tell us for what purpose, and can you tell us how many people you estimate may be around the Federation Parliament building?
Well, it's hard to estimate from here how many people are around the Federation building. There were at least 150 behind it during this demonstration. I doubt that many of them have left. I think the crowd is growing, so in excess of 150,000. These buses were put here by Muscovites, Reed, not by the supporters of the coup, but by Muscovites.
That's what I wanted to make clear.
Yeah, until about midday yesterday, this bridge was jammed with tanks and armored personnel carriers who were blocking traffic. And then, inexplicably, after most of the tanks and their support trucks and the armored personnel carriers had fanned out inside the city, the tanks on the bridge spun around and left back up the road here towards the edge of town. Immediately after that, Muscovites took these buses and pushed them physically into place like this. And then overnight, we saw these renegade tanks from, as I said, the Tamansky division. We think that there are about 10 or 15 armored vehicles that broke off from the Tamanskaya division and are now surrounding the Russian Federation building in support of Boris Yeltsin. These tanks appeared overnight at some point. But so far, we have seen no conflict in the city. I hasten to add that there has been, as far as we know, no blood shed in anger, except perhaps some domestic fights in Moscow since this coup began. So it's been very peaceful so far. But again, I would say that the lack of any sort of word from the leaders of the coup is somewhat ominous today. They were very talkative yesterday, saying what they were up to. Today, they've not said a word.
Right, Steve Hurst, thank you for setting the scene for us, for explaining who is who and what is what in Moscow as early evening wears on there. In just a few moments, we're going to talk to a man who defected from the Soviet side to the United States through the diplomatic pouch, a man who knows those scenes and their implications quite well, as we continue.
A lot of you insist on eating wheat thins and oat thins because they taste good. But the whole idea behind these crackers is that you can eat them without feeling guilty. That's why they're baked, not fried. I mean, eat them because they're delicious, and you miss the whole point.
With 5 powerful cleaning agents, Fantastic not only out-cleans all others on greasy kitchen dirt, it's the perfect do-it-yourself cleaning kit for almost every surface in your kitchen and bath. 5 Cleaner Fantastic. More power, more places.
Dear Thompson's, midway through waterproofing, I ran out of Thompson's Water Seal and finished with another brand. Then it rained. You could see the difference. Thompson's worked. The other side looked like I hadn't used a thing. Nothing tops Thompson's. Sincerely, Marcia Jackalone.
The Murine Earwax Removal System has drops that safely loosen hardened wax when used as directed, plus an ear washer to gently flush wax away. Murine, the complete medically approved system to safely remove earwax.
Only one network is seen, believed, and quoted in more than 100 countries around the world.
Arkady Shevchenko was attached to the Soviet mission in New York for some time at the United Nations, finally a member of the United Nations Secretariat attachment itself, when in the late 70s he decided that he would come to the United States, formally defected as it were, and became a citizen of the United States. Mr. Shevchenko has been observing the events of this day, the Bush press conference. He has seen the trams on the ways to the bridges and has heard what Mr. Yeltsin has to say. I suppose from your vantage point, you're the one to ask, is it possible, is it really possible now that there could be an armed assault on that Federation building in Moscow?
I think it's not excluded, and it looks like that this silence by the group which seized power is really ominous, and definitely they are preparing something. There is no question about that.
Are they preparing something, or are they playing a war of nerves with those within Yeltsin and his supporters? It's going to get dark pretty soon. Whose side is time on?
Well, it's of course they do both, playing a nerve war and at the same time, I think, preparing to seize the building. I think this group will not give up easily, because could you imagine that this coup will fail? These people can be brought to justice. They're fighting for their survival. They're fighting not only for their personal survival, but behind them, don't forget, is a party apparatus, a top nomenclatura, elite, a top of the KGB and the army. They all will lose their positions.
There are millions of bureaucratic jobs dependent upon what happens in the next few hours, aren't there?
Absolutely. There are millions and millions, and these are people in power. We should not think that the old system of the party apparatus, nomenclatura, and everything disintegrated. There's quite a strong residual power. And let me tell you that the only power which is really strong in the Soviet Union now is the army. If the country is disintegrated, it's as they claim, Yanayev claimed yesterday, Soviet Union is ungovernable. But there is only one strong force in the Soviet Union, which is armed forces. Of course, there is a renegade tanks or some units, but I think that all in all, I mean, the army would be more or less under the control of Marshal Yazov and the KGB.
But what would the young soldier, the conscript, do, who is not necessarily a member of the apparatus, not necessarily a political person, but just a boy off the farm? Would he shoot and kill his fellow man for this?
No, it's hard to tell. Some will not. But we also have to take into account that there are forces in the Soviet Union, well-trained, almost special internal ministry forces, which is called, you know, the Black Berets. There are paratroopers which are trained. You know, these people will not hesitate. They already did their job in Baltic Republic, in Armenia, in Azerbaijan, in Central Asia. There's quite a record of this troop, and they're a significant, sizable portion of the troops. I think that, of course, as you mentioned, that just people from the village boy, I mean, he would hesitate to shoot, for no doubt about that. But also we should not forget, there is a military discipline.
Is it possible in Tiananmen Square the Chinese had to bring in troops from without Beijing, outsiders, Auslanders who could do the job for them? Is it possible this is happening? We hear it might be in Moscow.
Absolutely. That is exactly. They will bring a troop from Central Asia, from some of the other places in the Soviet Union, because that is, you're right, that a troop which are stationed in Moscow, I would not expect them to shoot their fellow Muscovites. It can be even relatives that they would be shooting. That is, so that that is exactly maybe a delay, is that they are trying to concentrate troops which are more reliable and can be used against the population.
Mr. Shevchenko, We assume that none of this will take place and that we have been involved in wild speculation. Let's hope so.
Yes,
we're going
sure.
to go back to Moscow right after this word.
Over the years, a number of rare sightings have been captured on film. But recently, something truly remarkable appeared. This is actual footage of a Daihatsu Rocky Wide-Track 4x4 from Japan. Each new sighting reveals that it possesses extraordinary quality. If you haven't seen a Rocky Wide-Track 4x4 yet, remember that Daihatsu, it's not how many they make, it's how they make them. Daihatsu.
This can't be my new apartment.
Good thing I brought Lysol Pine Action. They've made it better. Now it cleans with hospital-type disinfection, the strongest you can buy.
Now it's starting to feel like home.
Improved Lysol Pine Action, a more powerful pine. When you look at dairy food, does your stomach say no? Introducing new Dairy Ease, a natural nutritional supplement that helps people with lactose intolerance enjoy ice cream, milk, and other delicious dairy food like everyone else. Pleasant tasting, chewable new Dairy Ease.
Oh, what people do to clean tough stains under the rim. Because for some bowl cleaners, that's a real stretch. Try a different angle. The angle neck of Lysol Toilet Bowl Cleaner. It easily goes under the rim and wipes out stains and germs. Don't get bent out of shape. Get Lysol Toilet Bowl Cleaner, the heavyweight with a powerful angle on cleaning.
Shaw, Arnett, Blitzer, Scherzer, Holloman, Jacob, Beerbaum, Montour, Blystone, Begley, Moe, Mintier, Blackburn, Randall, Lowry, Garslot.
In times of war and peace, no one covers the big story like CNN.
Now we're going back to Steve Hurst in Moscow and get an update on the conditions there. Steve?
Reed, we're continuing to stand by and wait, worrying that reports from the Russian government will come true, hoping against hope that they won't come true and that they're a result of rumor. I'll tick off those again, but I want to warn everyone who is listening that these reports are without foundation so far, but they do come from the highest levels of the Russian government, holed up in that white building behind me, and therefore I think that we have to take note at least. They're saying, first of all, here we can see some of the people who have surrounded this building all day, pulling up cobblestones from the street to build barricades. They're building them against what they claim a column of 80 tanks moving in from the back of this building from the Belorussia train station about 2.5 miles away here in Moscow. Further claims that military planes are landing at airports on the outskirts of town, bringing in troops. Further claims that there may be another column of tanks moving down Kutuzovsky Prospect here before long from the western fringes of Moscow. And we have also heard from the Russian leadership that President Gorbachev has been placed under arrest with 2 of his top aides, and that Gennady Yanayev, the acting president, has issued a decree for the arrest of Boris Yeltsin. They believe that this attack is imminent. We heard about this from them about 45 minutes ago. At the time, they were saying it would happen within 2 hours. It looks as if we probably have a great deal of light left, and I would be surprised if there is going to be an attack that it happens before nightfall, so it probably will be longer than an hour from now if it does happen. Mr. Yeltsin has talked most recently, as President Bush said, with President Bush to win his support, and with John Major, the Prime Minister of Britain. He pronounced himself satisfied after both of those telephone conversations and the strong support he won for his program and for the reinstatement of Mikhail Gorbachev as leader of this country. All women and children have been ordered out of the building. There was a mad scramble for a while for gas masks, we're told by CNN personnel who are now inside the building, perched on a balcony looking this direction, waiting for the tanks to show up. Steve Hurst, reporting live from Moscow.
Thank you, and of course CNN will keep us aware of any developments at any hour, at any time. For T.S. Eliot, it was April, but as Mr. Bush said, what is there about August? It's been a special report. I'm Reed Collins.
This has been a CNN special report.
the I Love New York weekend. The National Hockey League returns to the Omni on September 26th. Stanley Cup semifinalists, the Boston Bruins, face the New York Rangers. Then on Saturday, September 28th, the Boston Bruins meet the New York Islanders. It's NHL action at its best. The All-Star Ray Bourque and the Bruins face off against the Big Apple's best. Tickets at the Omni box office at all Ticketmaster outlets are charged by phone. Get ready for 2 wild nights at the Omni. The I Love New York Hockey Madness weekend.
I've got a taste for something special.
Hot off the grill at the Black Eyed Pea. Tender grilled tuna steak dinner. Tasty grilled tuna steak sandwich. And terrific grilled tuna salad. Tender, tasty, terrific. New grilled tuna.
I've got a taste for great home cooking. I've got a taste for the Black Eyed Pea. I've got a taste for the Black Eyed Pea.
This is CNN.
I'm Jan Hopkins reporting live from the CNN Business News Desk in New York. A partial recovery currently underway today on Wall Street. After plunging 70 points yesterday, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is now up about 9 points at 29.06. The Dow had been up 29 points in the early going. Big board volume today is heavy, 78 million shares changing hands. Advancing issues ahead of declining issues by a 3-to-1 margin. The broader and secondary markets are all higher as well. Bond prices higher today as traders speculate the Federal Reserve could decide to cut interest rates at its open market committee meeting today. Treasury's 30-year bond up 7/32 and the yield 8.08%. The dollar is lower after big gains yesterday. The dollar now down 2 2/3 pfennigs against the German mark, down 1 3/4 cents against the British pound, and down 3/4 of a yen against the Japanese currency. Finally, gold and silver are lower after big run-ups yesterday. That's the latest in business news. I'm Jan Hopkins, reporting from the Business News Desk in New York.
A coup, a crisis, and crowds in the streets. Tense times for the Soviet people. Will daily life get harder still? Hello, I'm Catherine Cryer. Welcome to Cryer & Company. The Soviet people are caught in the crisis. Who will they support? Well, let's ask our guest. Tatiana Tolstaya joins us in Washington. She's a writer who lives in Moscow and is the great-great-grandniece of the Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy. Tatiana, thank you very much for joining us. So much of what we hear is political. Take us into the streets and tell us what the people are thinking there in Moscow.
Well, if I were there, of course, I would tell you exactly what they think and what they say about what's going on. And right now, I can only stay here in Baltimore, where I live now, and watch the TV. I watch it when I'm not in bed. And
but
so
Tatiana, I don't mean that literally that you were on the streets, but you understand the Soviet people and the way they think and the way they perceived Gorbachev's government. How do you think they're reacting?
Well, as far as I can see, the crowds in Moscow are I would say pro-Yeltsin crowds. They support the Russian government, whatever it means, and they support Yeltsin, and they think they know what Yeltsin means. It means hope for them, it means democracy, it means respect to them as human beings. And this respect is not shown by these hardliners who took over right now. Unfortunately, we cannot hear exactly the cries in the street and the talks because everything is shown from a certain distance. But when we can, it's very interesting, you know, the discussions that we can hear.
Well, that is interesting indeed, because the question comes to mind, are the people willing to take up arms? Are they willing to give their lives to defend these first tastes of democracy, to defend a Boris Yeltsin in the Russian Federation?
Well, you never know until there is a real danger, I believe, because the citizens of Moscow are not used to violence, are not used to shooting and so on. I think that it comes with time, because, for example, in Armenia, people are already used to shooting, and they know very well with their own skin, so to say, what they're going to defend. In Moscow, it's all very theoretical right now, but when I see people who just gather around our White House, we call it the White House, where the Russian parliament stays, well, I think that people realize that they are in a certain danger, and, well, I'm afraid that this danger turns from theoretical to practical one.
Let me ask you to move outside of Moscow, because most of the pictures that we see, certainly where the cameras are permitted now in Moscow, or maybe a word from the Baltics, but what about the Soviet Union as a whole? How would you anticipate the different republics are reacting to the changes in Moscow?
It's difficult for me to say, because it's a long time since I've ever been to any of the republics.
Would you expect there to be different responses and different reactions as you move from the cities to the rural?
But more than that, I would say that republics may respond differently, but Russian province will respond differently from what you can see in Moscow and Leningrad, because Russian provinces, and, well, lots of them, they're all different, they are populated by people different from what you can see in capitals. You must not forget, and we Russians, we ourselves, we do not realize it all the time, that the television doesn't go through to Russian republics. It's cut short. The so-called Russian television and Leningrad television, it is seen only in Moscow and Leningrad, maybe some other towns around these capitals. And the newspapers do not come through, because the distribution of newspapers is in the hands of the hardliners here and there. So the provinces are sleepy little towns and villages with no much information from the center. So it's a big question, how will they react? I would say that the Baltic republics are much more open to the information than maybe some places 50 miles from Moscow.
Let me ask you, you mentioned the hardliners, Yanayev. What kind of appeal does he have, if any? Do the people across the Soviet Union, and even in Moscow, know this man very well?
I don't think anyone knows him. I remember only when he was appointed by Gorbachev himself, there was a sort of surprise and disdain towards Yanayev, because his background, his past, and the very way he looks doesn't cause any respect in people. During these years, maybe during the last 3 or 4 years, we got used to people with at least some personality and some strength. They may have the views we are inclined to share, or vice versa.
Tatiana, let me interrupt, because we're almost out of time, and I need to ask you the last question, and that is, given events in the last several hours, certainly over the last 24, do you think there will be a civil war?
Well, I think actually civil war is going on.
So you think it's already underway?
Yes.
Tatiana Tolstaya, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Is the Soviet Union on the verge of civil war? A debate with our panel just ahead.
We are going to do just to stand here, if necessary, for days and nights to protect our government and to preserve all the freedom that we have been moving to.
Call this toll-free number now to receive a free Vacation Values discount book during Kissimmee St. Cloud's Great Fall Getaway. Stay right in the heart of Central Florida's attractions. Save on hotels, dining, and tickets to Walt Disney World Magic Kingdom, Epcot Center, Disney MGM Studios, as well as SeaWorld, Spaceport USA, and Universal Studios Florida. Call 1-800-992-KISS today and receive a free coupon book and save on your Kissimmee St. Cloud Great Fall Getaway.
It took real expertise to create New Expert, the kind of pet food vets recommend. But it took real genius to give it great taste. New Expert diets from Pedigree and Whiskas, expert nutrition from our vets, great taste for your pets.
In the French Alps, there's a source of clean water that's as refreshing as any on Earth. It doesn't flow from some remote mountain peak. It flows from an ordinary faucet that's connected to an Instapure water filter.
Presenting the Gripper Zipper from Ziploc. Now the easiest closing bag there is. In fact, even the Little ones can close it. Hello.
Feel the zipper. It's locking. Feel it close the first time, every time.
Ziploc bags.
With the Gerber zipper.
Did you hear? Kraft Touch of Butter spread comes in sticks, so your cooking and baking can have that genuine buttery taste. Kraft Touch of Butter sticks are made with creamy butter. A touch of real butter makes a real difference.
These are some of the world's most respected brand names, known the world over for quality and credibility. In a recent poll, only one television network finished among the leaders, CNN.
Just about 10 minutes ago, when we received our last report from Steve Hirsch, the bureau chief, CNN bureau chief in Moscow, he reported that the Russian government was claiming columns of tanks were heading toward the Russian Federation building. Military planes were possibly bringing in troops. Well, apparently, an Associated Press photographer has sighted about 100 Soviet tanks in columns near Moscow's central airfield, about 2.5 miles from the Russian Parliament building. And apparently an independent radio station, Moscow Echo, has been reporting the comments from the Republic deputies in the Parliament building, as Steve indicated, that the Soviet troops are demanding barricades be removed from around the building or else they will attack. Now let's go to our panelists. Resistance appears to be spreading in the Soviet Union. Tens of thousands of people are defying the ban. They're demonstrating. They're demanding the new rulers produce Mikhail Gorbachev. Is bloodshed coming? Josette Shiner joins us in Washington. She's the deputy managing editor of the Washington Times. During one of her trips to the Soviet Union, she interviewed Gennady Yanayev, the new Soviet acting president. Linda Feldman is also with us in Washington. She's the former Moscow correspondent for the Christian Science Monitor. Now she covers Capitol Hill. Eleanor Cliff joins us in Chicago. She's the congressional and political correspondent for Newsweek. Reports obviously very ominous. Let me first ask Linda, excuse me, let me go to Josette first. You have interviewed Yanayev. What do you think of the man? Do you see at this point in time, in fact, he would instruct those tanks to attack?
Well, the most startling thing in the interview, which took place at the height of perestroika, was his constant criticism of the West that I found. He was very critical of the Western media for reporting the troubles in the Soviet Union. He was very critical of the American government for not giving him a visa. He was at that time head of the trade unions in the Soviet Union, and we don't recognize their legitimacy. And he seemed to be an angry man. The only Western thing he seemed to like were American cigarettes, which he holds in great favor. But he is for economic reform, but was very critical of private businesses and said over and over again, I'm a communist to the depths of my soul.
Josette, is this man a leader, or is this man a figurehead for the KGB and the Army?
Well, he has a reputation in Moscow as being a yes man. He's always done what has been asked of him as a hard-working party bureaucrat. He's never really taken a leadership role, and it seems clear now that he is really the front man for this junta.
Linda, what do you think?
I think that's just about right. As Tatiana Tolstoy pointed out, he looks like the old-style leader. He talks like one. He even looks a little like Brezhnev. And I don't think he's fooling anybody that he really has much control over the situation himself.
Well, Eleanor, the world is watching. The cameras are still rolling. Boris Yeltsin made statements to the crowd this morning, certainly surrounded by bodyguards and well-wishers. Do you think they will attack given the world's observance?
Well, as a viewer watching it, it feels an awful lot like Tiananmen Square, where you're rooting for the good guys, but you have this awful feeling that tragedy is about to unfold. The key is what the Army is going to do. Is the Army going to turn on its own people? And I think what the Soviet coup leaders have done is that they've imported soldiers from the far-reaching Asian provinces. It's a rather cynical maneuver. It's what the Chinese did. You bring in people who don't feel an allegiance to the citizens that they're facing. And so, I mean, the potential is clearly there. We can all hope that this massive display of protest and words from around the world will somehow reverse this, but history would not give us much encouragement.
Josette, what about the actions of Gorbachev? He literally selected these men, surrounded himself with the men that at least temporarily have provided for his removal from power.
I think that's a key point. When history is written, we'll look back at December 1990 when when Gorbachev was making the selection of vice president, and all the key people that he turned to, like Shevardnadze, who was a key supporter of reform, refused to take the position of vice president, saying it held no power. And after Gorbachev worked through a short list of reformers, he turned to Yanayev, who was really a shock to everybody, but it was to placate the hard line. What we have learned now is that position, in fact, did hold power, and it enabled Yanayev to work from the inside to undermine Gorbachev. The interesting thing is Yanayev would be nowhere without Gorbachev, and in fact, he lost his first vote in the parliament and didn't have support, and it was only through Gorbachev strong-arming deputies to vote for this man that he even got into the position that he did. So the drama here, the betrayal, is really a fascinating story in itself.
Well, it seems to me that Gorbachev made his bargain with the devil when he selected INF, and I think he did it because he was bargaining for time, and he bought himself 6 or 8 more months. I think he knew what he was doing.
Well, can you really walk that fine line? Was that the issue, that he was unable to come down truly in favor of either the hardliners and strengthen that power base, or to support the democratic movements?
Yes, he was trying to split the middle. That has been his strategy all along. He has, instead of going hard in either direction, he has tried to split the middle, and in so doing, bring everybody along with him. He has tried to be a consensus leader, and as he has seen, he has wound up with nothing. The people are out in the streets not to support Gorbachev, but to support Yeltsin.
You and I have made a comment that, in fact, Gorbachev may come to feel better. Would it be anticipated at all that he could bring him back into government, not just back to Moscow?
He could bring him back, but I frankly can't see Gorbachev going along with a plan like that.
All right, we're going to take a short...
I think that if Gorbachev could be brought back, it would be a great victory. But again, I think we're dealing with about 1 out of 100, or 1 out of 1,000 in terms of odds.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, is the power struggle critical to the rest of the world? The debate continues.
Some people don't know it, but they're paying too much in taxes. Take these two, identical in many ways. Similar homes, similar income, similar investments. But one could be paying 28% more tax on his savings and investment income. That's over $200 on every $800 earned. The other called Fidelity Investments toll-free and found out how to invest tax-free in this free fact kit on Fidelity tax-free funds. It shows you how to earn income that's 100% free from federal income taxes. And in some states, your income may be free from state and local taxes, too. And there's no sales charge, which means all your money is working for you. So call for your free fact kit on Fidelity Investments tax-free funds. Call right now and you'll also get this bonus booklet, Understanding Tax-Free Investing. See how Fidelity gives you the facts you need to make up your own mind without pressure.
Hello, Fidelity?
Keep more of what you earn. Call 1-800-328-4100 today and let Fidelity show you how.
You wanna accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. Tune in to the affirmative, the family channel, yes indeed.
Nobody captures life on the positive side like the Family Channel.
You wanna accentuate the positive, the family channel, yes indeed.
At Value Right Pharmacies, you'll always find great American values, just like these. Fellows magazine files are $1.99, filing boxes $4.99, and drawer files $6.99. Check your blood glucose with a LifeScan One Touch 2, just $65.99 after the mail-in rebate. And get Oil of Olay lotion for $5.39 or foaming face wash for $2.99. Look in the yellow pages for participating Value Right pharmacies. There's one near you.
We want democracy, but when 2-3 months ago people from Baltics say, Bush, help me, Bush say, no, no. And now we have this situation. It's bad.
Turning now to the events in Moscow as they affect the international community, and our panelists Linda Feldman, Eleanor Clift, and Josette Shiner. What about President Bush's comment this morning? He had a conversation with Boris Yeltsin and pledged continuing U.S. support for the efforts to return Mikhail Gorbachev to power. Is that enough, and can the United States do any more?
The question is, what can we do? This is not Iraq. This is not a situation where we can send in the troops. The military stakes are much higher. What Bush has done in cutting off the aid will take its effect very quickly because the economic situation in the Soviet Union is so acute, and the food situation, it will be a long, cold winter, and the pressure will be there. But I don't think that immediately there is much more that this government can do.
Well, I think the president and the other allies ought to stand up and be very forceful about what will happen if this coup attempt succeeds, that the Soviet Union will be isolated, that they will not get food aid, Western aid, economic aid, that there is an enormous cost in carrying this out.
Eleanor,
what about act like it's
what about the notion
encourages them?
What about the notion of recognizing the Baltics, if in fact the coup were to succeed, that you begin to do business, so to speak, with the independent republics?
I think that makes a lot of sense. I would recognize the republics, and I would recognize Boris Yeltsin, and I think the president should think long and hard before he confers any legitimacy, to use his word, on this rebel government.
Certainly one quick action that we could take would be to invite the Eastern European countries into the European community and into NATO. These countries are in danger because of this coup. These leaders of the coup view democracies in Eastern Europe as a direct threat to the stability of the Soviet Union, and while they might not bring in troops, they'll try to undermine these governments through the KGB and other efforts. And certainly by consolidating at least the Eastern European countries, it would set up a line of defense there.
Now that sounds like we're hearkening right back to the Cold War. Linda, what do you think?
I don't think we can go back to the Cold War. The old order has been dismantled, and the Eastern Europeans are not going to allow themselves to be taken over again. Furthermore, I don't think the new government in the Soviet Union, if you can even call it that yet, really has the wherewithal to get involved in any foreign ventures anytime soon. They have a lot to contend with the collapsed Soviet economy and with the nationalities problems, and I think they will be focused internally for the foreseeable years.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll look at the next few hours in the Soviet Union.
This latest move of the military is completely unconstitutional. Yeltsin and the government of the Russian Federation is a government that has been elected by the people, and it's working for the people.
Sometimes I feel like I'm being pulled in a dozen different directions at once. I can't slow down. That's not an option. Stress, poor diet, irregularity. And that made me grouchy. Then I read about fiber therapy with these new Metamucil wafers. They're quick, they're easy, they taste like cookies. And while the kids have their milk and cookies, I have my fiber. And they really work. And I'm never grouchy anymore. Well, almost never.
New Metamucil wafers. Just 2 little wafers have as much soluble fiber as this bowl full of apples. Enough extra fiber to help you get regular and stay that way.
I still can't slow down, but at least now I can keep up.
New Metamucil fiber wafers. Fiber therapy for busy people.
Ziploc presents Fingerman.
Hi, I'm here to demonstrate the Gripper Zipper from Ziploc. Now the easiest closing bag there is. In fact, you can close it even if you're all thumbs.
How you doing?
Yes, the zipper is grabbing hold. It's locking. Feel it close the first time, every time.
Yeah.
Ziploc bags with the Gripper Zipper. The easiest closing bag there is.
Now that was a snap.
It took real expertise to create New Expert, the kind of pet food vets recommend. But it took real genius to give it great taste. New Expert diets from Pedigree and Whiskas. Expert nutrition from our vets. Great taste for your pets. Sunday night. Discover nature's quick change artists on National Geographic Explorer. 9 Eastern, Sunday night, only on TBS.
Just to support and protect our Russian government, because all the people around Russia voted for that government, and that is why we are here.
Returning to the panelists, Things are happening so quickly in the Soviet Union now. The recent reports of tanks moving in from the airport, the comment that from the Russian government that Gorbachev is not ill but under arrest with 2 of his aides. Look at the next 24 hours for me, Josette. What do you think?
Unfortunately, the only direct threat right now to this junta internally is Boris Yeltsin and Sobchak's people in Leningrad, and they need to deal with it from their perspective. And I think what we will see, this is a very brutal army, a very brutal KGB. They've had no problem in the past shedding blood when they feel it's in their interests. And unfortunately, as Eleanor said, I think it will make Tiananmen Square look like a tea party compared to what we may face here in the next 24 hours.
So you anticipate bloodshed?
This is the only open, direct threat, and I think we'll see. But again, this is not an army or a KGB with a history of taking the people's needs into account.
Linda?
What I saw when I was in Moscow last year was that people, while they had ceased to be afraid of authority, that when the threat of violence faced them, that the fear came right back. And I really don't think the people are going to be willing to sacrifice their lives for this.
Eleanor, what do you think?
I think this is a challenge for President Bush's leadership and the leadership of the democratic world as well. And I think if the hotline is working, that George Bush better get on it and tell these leaders exactly what is at stake if they revert to form and use brutal force against their own people, that they risk setting the Soviet economy into further chaos, and ostensibly they're in power to save the country from chaos, and this will plunge it further into chaos. That point needs to be made very directly.
And sadly, that point cannot reach the Soviet people, we assume. Is that correct, Eleanor?
Well, I think the Soviet people, if they come out in the tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, I don't feel comfortable encouraging that. And I imagine the president doesn't either, because we're not in a position to help them if they come out. The only thing we can do is apply pressure on this so-called junta, and I think that needs to be done both publicly and privately.
Eleanor Clift, Linda Feldman, Josette Shiner, and our thanks to Tatiana Tolstaya for joining us. Thank you all. Now, if you'd like to write to us, send your letters to Cryer & Company, P.O. Box 740166, Atlanta, Georgia, 30374-0166, or you can fax us at 404-681-3578. And a programming note, we will be replaying the Bush News Conference at 1 a.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm Catherine Cryer. Now for a look at what's coming up on NewsHour, here's Bobby Batista. Bobby?
Thanks, Catherine. Just ahead, the tens of thousands of defiant Soviets gathered in support of Boris Yeltsin may be in imminent danger. There is word that Kremlin tanks may be ready to roll against the coup resistance. In Washington, President Bush is pledging his support for Yeltsin and the anti-coup forces. We'll have a full live coverage next on NewsHour.
Coming up, NewsHour, followed by Sonia Live here on CNN.
Hi, right on time.
This sure doesn't taste like country-fed meat.
Meat, don't go.
You know I'd give up anything for country-fed meat.
For free home delivery, call the Country Fed Meat Company today.
Drive the lease with the most. Introducing the 36-month full-service lease for 1991 S-Class sedans from Atlanta Classic Cars. Find out what it's like to drive in Mercedes luxury. This limited-time lease offer includes all maintenance, loaner car, cellular phone, 2 detailings per year, 24-hour roadside assistance, and an option to purchase. Act now, because this incredible offer from Atlanta Classic Cars ends August 31st.
Adventure, analysis, big events, biography, choice, classics, comedy, concerts, current events, debate, documentary, drama, educational, entertainment, geography, history, home shopping, information, how-tos, interviews.